cool kids.
So welcome everyone. Once again, thanks for coming. My name is Sang Nam. I'm the director of Computer Game Design Program. And along with Kayla Harris and Professor James Casey, who's eating his pizza. Okay, Kayla Harris was one of our non-degree seeking students at first, and then eventually became our master's program. She's in our master's program and finishing up her master's degree. And she's are you now senior game designer or junior senior?
I wish. If I was a senior, I'd make way more money. But yeah,
that's right. She's a game designer at Big Q's Game, and then she's a lifetime creator, and then she loves K-pop and Korean culture. So it worked out pretty well because Big Q's Game actually is owned by Nexon, which is a Korean mega game company.
Like Maple Story, Dungeon Fighter, all those big games. Yeah.
So Kayla Harris will cover talk about how you can possibly create your resume better and then more effective and efficient. And at the same time, she will share some scary story about getting to job in industry. Sometimes, I mean, now you have to understand we have so many people who wants to become game designer and developer, so it's comparative. So you have to be ready, but sometimes it's great to hear this kind of story of failure, but not necessarily failure because once you learn from these failures, it will help you become stronger. So please give a big hands to Miss Kayla Harris.
Thank you. So at the very end, if you guys have questions, I can answer them. If you brought your portfolio or resume or cover letter, I can look at it with you. I even have examples of resume, cover letter, like what your stuff probably should look like. So please hold whatever questions you have until the end. And the only scary thing I guess I'll say now, not to scare anyone, because Professor Nam says I'm trying to tell scary stories. I'm really not. But there is a statistic that says for every one game design job, there's about 10,000 students in school right now for that one job. So
that's already scary enough.
So just let that sink in, and also just I guess keep in mind while I'm talking up here, you're not really competing against your fellow students. You're competing against me. You're competing against some of the portfolios I'm going to show you at the end of my coworkers. So again, not to scare anyone, but I'm basically showing you what a professional artist portfolio looks like. I'm going to show you what my original game design portfolio looked like when I got hired. So yeah, so don't be discouraged. Just make sure you're working really hard and you follow some of these steps that we're going to go over in a second. So yeah, so let's get started. Like Professor Nam said, my name is Kayla Harris. I work at Big Huge Games. They're a subsidiary of Nexon, and Nexon makes really big games like Maple Story, Dungeon Fighter, FIFA Online, a bunch of other ones. They make a lot of money, and they're mostly in Korea and Japan, but they also have expanded to now being in the States. So it's like Big Huge and Pixelberry makes Choices? Yeah, it makes Choices on the App Store. So if you played any of those games, that's basically what this company is all about. So, and this really is talking really about how I got my job and how you guys can be set up to hopefully get yours. So, yes, let's go ahead and get started. But first, if it works, come on, tap. There we go. Unless it froze. Hold on, looks like the whole thing froze. Alright, so whatever. First, this is the game I'm working on, Dominations. It is a history strategy game. So if you think of Clash of Clans or Boom Beach, it's in the same kind of vein. It's made over $150 million. It's been around for about 4 years, and I'm a game designer, so I design content and systems for this game. So I don't know the exact amount of money my stuff that I've designed has made, but I know it's made quite a bit. I get to see the numbers every week. So yeah, Dominations, that's what I work on. So yeah, a little more about me. So this is the part about how I got my job, basically. So in 2016, I was the E3 ESA ARP Social Game Jam finalist. So me and my partner, this was obviously some years ago now, made a game, and we got to go to E3 for free, basically. We got to compete in front of a panel of judges, so like Sid Meier of like Civilization, Robin Hooneke of like Journey, and a few other big names were all there like judging us, basically. And I applied for that right here because someone set up the game jam, and I just went to it on a weekend and just spent all weekend working on a prototype. So basically, if you guys hear about game jams or other extracurricular activities or anything like that, just go do it. It won't take you that much time. Just go knock that kind of stuff out. Like, it really, for 48 hours of my life, I got to end up going to E3, made tons of connections. I'm like LinkedIn and like Twitter friends like Robin Hooneke now. Like weird stuff like that would have never happened if I just didn't spend 48 hours on a Saturday, Sunday at a game jam that was held here at Mason. So after that, the next year in 2017, I applied for the IGDA scholarship, which is a program that selects about 19 students from across the world to be scholars to GDC. So that basically means that we got a mentor, we got to meet lots of different industry people. I met like the lead game programmer for Assassin's Creed, lead programmer for like No Man's Sky, tons of other, like one of the Telltale writers, like they all came and talked to us. So of course y'all got to exchange information, LinkedIn's, Twitter's, Facebook's, all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to say this, it sounds like kind of cliche, but like a lot of the industry isn't always like what you know, it is also who you know. So making these small connections might seem like nothing, but like then they might post on LinkedIn, hey, we're looking for such and such designer, such and such artist, then you basically get a leg up on the other competition. So also fun fact, they are accepting applications right now. So I think that the deadline is like November 28th, 29th, something like that. If you guys, as soon as this is over, please go apply. It's only about 8 essays. There's been 3 of us from George Mason that has been accepted so far that I'm aware of. I'm working at Big Huge Games now. Luis, who was the same year as me that got selected, he works for 2K now on WWE. And the third person, Megan, I'm not sure what she's working on right now, but she got selected I think the year after we did. So this is a real thing. It's very competitive because you're competing against like everyone across the world, but you can get selected. And you have wonderful professors here that will review your submission before it's due, or even your parents. Just make sure you show it to someone so that you have the best chance of getting selected, basically. Yeah, so that's literally right now. So please apply for that. You can get selected. So next, like we've already stated, I've been a designer on Dominations for almost 3 years actually, so it's been a little more than 2 years now. And before that, I was a modding sim engineer working at Huntington Ingalls on serious games. So I did that for about 4 years. And like Professor Nam said, I'm expecting my game design master's next semester. So now this whole talk is going to be the meat of what we're here for. What leads and recruiters are looking for. So basically your cover letter, your resume, your portfolio. And all of you in this room, if you're a game design major, have to take a portfolio class, right? But that portfolio class is heavily focused on your portfolio. And I can review that after this talk is done. But before the recruiters or the lead designer or whoever's going to even see your portfolio, most of the time they're going to see your cover letter or your resume. So let's talk about that stuff first. So the first stage, your cover letter is super important. So you really, before you even see the designer or the lead artist or the lead design, like lead programmer, any of that kind of stuff, you're gonna, first stop is always the recruiter or the talent coordinator, and their job is to like weed out through thousands of resumes that they've received and see which one's actually good enough to go forward for the designers or programmers or whatever to actually look at, right? So this is probably the biggest thing, and it's so easy to fix. Know the company that you're applying for, research them, please play their games, know who you're talking to. Our name is Big Huge Games. We've gotten replies from people said, oh, please address to Big Fish Games. It's a completely different company. Like, make sure you're not doing something as small as that. As soon as you do something like that, it's like, well, did they even mean to apply to us? Throw that resume out the door, or throw that cover letter out the door. Like, please make sure you know who you're applying to. Also, I'll say this now, I'll probably say it again later. We are a strategy game company for the most part, right? So if your cover letter is talking about, I want to be a level designer, I want to make God of War. Well, if you look at our games, we're not making God of War, we're making, strategy games. So in your cover letter, if you talk about maybe Fire Emblem or Clash of Clans, games that are more centered on the kind of games we make, we're going to actually take a second look at you. If you're talking about, man, I love that Uncharted 4 level design, like, we're just going to throw that away. Like, that's not our company. So if you're playing the Naughty Dog, yeah, sure, have that kind of talk in there maybe, but not for us. So that's really just researching who the company is. So of course, tell us who you are. That seems like a no-brainer, but like, of course, you should put your name, like what your actual title you are applying for would be, those kinds of things. The biggest thing is, please tell us what skills that you're bringing that are relevant to the position that you're applying for. So that might seem crazy, right? But if we listed a position for a senior software engineer and we're looking for you to know Java, don't tell us you know C# because we don't care. Like, it's good that you know C#. That's amazing. But if our job description specifically says we want you to know Java because Java is what you're going to be doing at work, make sure that's highlighted in your cover letter. Make sure that you're pointing that out in big, not actually big bold letters, but it should be pretty obvious to start. And actually, at some point, you guys come up and read one of mine. This one I think is to Respawn. So before I took the job at Big Huge Games, I was actually applying to and talking to several different companies. So this one is a tad bit long, but you guys can come look at this after this if you would like to. But basically, I was holding this up because your cover letter really shouldn't be more than maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs. This is a tad long. So it still fits on one page. It also should fit on one page, by the way. You shouldn't have multi-page cover letters because basically the recruiter is getting inundated with so many resumes and cover letters. They don't have time to like sit there and read each and every one. So they're going to look for the big ticket points in your cover letter, and then if it's good, they'll put it in a separate pile, and they'll take that separate pile and say, okay, maybe lead designer needs to look at this, maybe lead programmer needs to look at this one. So this is a tad long, but it's only a tad because it only has 3 lines on the next page. So a little bit long, but we don't want you to send a 2 or 3 page cover letter because we're adamant about reading your cover letters at Big Huge, but companies like Sony that might get 10,000 applications to our 2,000 applications a day ain't got time to read that basically. So just keep that in mind. Now for your resume, please, 1 page only. So like I said, afterwards you guys can come and look at this. So at the beginning, remember how I said that before I became a professional game designer for like fun games, I did like serious games like IT and stuff for like the government, right? As doing serious game research. Even with more than 4 years experience on my resume, it was still only 1 page. So just because you guys are in school and have projects, just because you guys have a job, like please make sure your resume is 1 page. And make sure whatever you're putting on your resume is relevant to what you're applying for. So just because you worked at like McDonald's or then maybe Forever 21 or something, if you had like 5 or 6 jobs and the first 2 or 3 was when you were like 15, 16, you can start lopping those off. Keep the most recent ones on there just to show that you have some work experience. But for mine, for example, it has, when I was working here at George Mason, it has my 4+ year career job, and then it has my DoD internship, and I've made serious games for the government, right? And then below is like my education. And at the very top, you'll see I have like my secret security clearance. You'll see I have like software. I know how to use like Unreal, Unity, etc. Make sure you have all those different things on there, but it should still only be 1 page. Next, good formatting. So this is very clear. Like actually, this is my resume is actually blue, but I only had a black and white printer at work. But whatever. So you want to make sure you have good formatting. As soon as the recruiter sees this, they can say, "Oh, software. Bam! I know what software she knows how to use." Oh, languages, C++, C#. Okay, I know that. They shouldn't have to look on your resume for these key buzzwords. If they have to look for it, they're not going to do it. They're going to throw it out the window. They're going to just go to the next person. So even though I'm saying these things, like it seems like it's obvious, but I've seen so many resumes and cover letters and things like that, even from GMU students applying to Big Huge, and they're not doing these things. So I already kind of said the skills section, but make sure, this is a personal preference, and I talked to our talent coordinator. She also said that she prefers having the software skills section like as soon as she like looks at your resume, so she knows, hey, should I keep reading this basically. Lastly, this is directly from our talent coordinator. She said she prefers for your portfolio that you have a landing page with your original work. So as soon as she opens like kaylaHarris1018 or whatever, or Big Huge Games, like as soon as you open that, you're going to see art. The games made, whatever you've been working on, it should just be a splash page with whatever you've been doing, so they can, look at it and keep going. On other pages on your portfolio, you can have like game engines, contact info, those kinds of things. If you're a programmer, you should have GitHub, Bitbucket. We're going to get more into that in a little bit because I have interview questions on here for you guys if you're a programmer. So that's the first stage. So hopefully you did all of that right? But say if you didn't, this is like another reminder. Please have someone, anyone, a teacher, a parent, someone, review your cover letter, resume, and portfolio. Things like typos and errors in your portfolio or resume or cover letter shows a lack of attention to detail, which is detrimental to a junior developer. So think of any kind of bug you've seen in a game, like any of them. Like maybe a gun in Fortnite had the wrong stats, or maybe they had a live event and they took that live event down, but they put it right back up 10 minutes later. What probably happened? Someone made a mistake. They weren't paying attention, uploaded the wrong thing. Happens all the time. But remember, it's okay to like make mistakes as like a junior developer or even as a senior developer, but like you don't want to present yourself as a person that's making those kinds of mistakes when you're applying for the job. So that's really important. So even when you get to the interview phase, when you have the phone interview, they're going to just be trying to see like, are you paying attention to what you're doing? Especially if you get into an interview and you start doing like some kind of whiteboard exercise. So just be very cognizant of that. So like I said, typos and errors are really bad. Like unless you're like, man, like that guy's an amazing artist, like that could be a reason to be like, man, they're not paying attention to their work. We might not want that kind of person working here. All right, next, let's say you actually got past the recruiter and you actually want to be a game designer like me, and you are having either the phone interview or the enroll by in-person interview, for example. So I've talked to Steve Superville of like Paragon and Gears of War. I've talked to John Hawkins of like Rise of Nations and Dominations, like Joe Grubb of like Eternal. They're all my coworkers, bosses, by the way. So I'm actually just asking them the number one thing they care about if you're trying to be a game designer. They care about, do they have games that I can play or that I can see? Show me what you've made. Please just show me any kind of game you've designed. Can I play it? Can I see it? Can I download it? These are extremely important. Because as a junior developer, things like iteration and implementation are the main things you're going to be working on as a junior game designer. Have you play tested your work before? Have you put your work in front of other people for them to play it? What did you learn when you did that? So, for an example, a senior designer might write a design spec and then they don't have time to actually implement it. So you junior developer, junior designer, you're going to be the one implementing their work, basically. So that's where that attention to detail comes back into play, right? Attention to detail and being able to make sure that you're paying attention and showing that you have an understanding of how their system should work is really important. Next. So theoretical design versus in-practice design, like it's really cool that you have opinions on like why Blizzard's doing whatever they're doing with Overwatch, or why May has a powerful gun, or whatever you guys think. But we don't really care about that. That's nice to be able to have like a good conversation about, but we're more concerned with the in-practice design. Have you taken something from like the pen paper prototype phase to a thing that we can play? So the more you can show that you can do that, the better. Game engines. If you're a designer, not all design positions need to know how to code, but obviously it helps. But if you're a designer, like, do you know Unity? Do you know Unreal? Do you know any other game engine that might help you if you're in a work environment? Some studios have proprietary engines, but for the most part, the market is going more and more to doing Unreal, Unity, etc. Like, if you work at certain studios, you're probably going to use like maybe Frostbite, but like that's not where most industry is going. For a designer, we want to know how well have you worked with groups in the past. So as a professional game designer, I spend a large chunk of my day talking to engineering, talking to QA, talking to artists, basically making sure that whatever my design was, that it's getting implemented correctly, making sure that we're hitting all the points that we want to hit for whatever I design. So not that thing, but that's a box. I designed that box too. But that guy is the master assassin. I designed that for Dominations. So in order to talk about him, I had to talk with art a lot, like how he should look. I showed art references, talking to engineering about what he should be doing, those kinds of things. QA, like, is this a bug or not? Like, those kinds of things really do matter. Can you speak to games that are relevant to the position? So that kind of goes back to that whole level design versus like strategy game thing I was talking about earlier. So if you're applying to a position at our company, you're probably going to be some kind of content or systems designer. You're not going to be a level designer at Big Huge, at least not right now. So can you speak to like Clash of Clans? Can you speak to any Fire Emblem or maybe Metal Gear Acid or any other kind of either turn-based strategy or real-time strategy? Like these kind of strategy games, like that's what we're interviewing for. Like, do you play those kind of games? If you don't, start. Like, before you come and interview for like, any position here, we're going to ask you to play Dominations. Like, can you talk to Dominations like in an interview? Like, those are the kind of things we're looking for. Are you making games in your free time? Card games, board games, video games. Like, even as a designer, like most stuff you're making is probably all gonna be bad. Like that's fine. Like all the games in my portfolio, in my opinion, are all terrible. But they showed my now current job that I was willing to just be making games in my free time, and that's a really big thing. And lastly, when you're making these games, please show them to someone that doesn't know how your rule set functions, so you're getting better feedback. That's just something you should do in your normal play testing. Also, fun fact, education in other relevant fields other than game design is helpful. So yes, knowing games is good, but if you have like a history degree, for example, we've hired, I think, a live ops person and a designer for Dominations because they had a history degree. And for Dominations, that's really relevant because we make a history video game, right? So don't just study game design, that's really good. Have other interests, it does help. So let's say you didn't want to be a designer like me, but you actually wanted to be a game artist. So I've talked to lead game artists at big, huge other places about what they're looking for. So design is, of course, more of a squishy kind of thing. Of course, it does have hard things that you can apply, but things like art and engineering are extremely hard skills. So when I say hard skills, I mean like you have to show me what you can do. Like you have to go make that model. You have to go write that code. Design is a little bit less squishy than that, well, only a little bit. So after talking to our lead artist, basically him and a few of the other artists were basically like, quality versus quantity is a big thing. So if you have just 5 really good pieces of art that are like just a freaking amazing, like they're A+, put those 5 on your landing page in your portfolio. Don't show us 30 mediocre work, like pieces of work, because what that conveys is that you're going to continue to do mediocre work. So if you show me 5 really good things, it's like, wow, that's really, really good. They really pay attention. They're not lackadaisical. They work really hard. They pay really attention to tell what they're working on. So just keep that in mind. Like if you have 5 to 10 maybe really good pieces, show those rather than showing the ones that are just only mediocre. Because you don't want to give the recruiter any impression that you're not really good at what you do. So also extra work. Not just school projects. Please participate in like game jams or working on your own projects on the side. I know I'm saying this, it sounds like, yeah, we know, but like, no, you don't. I see presentations and portfolios all the time, and it's like, did you just make that in class, like for your midterm? Like, that's fine to have that on there somewhere, but you definitely want to show your best. This is just feedback from the lead artists. They were like, they hate Wix for art portfolios because it doesn't show very well, I guess, for artists. But yeah, so I'm just kind of saying that. If you do have a Wix and you're an artist, maybe consider using something like ArtStation. ArtStation is amazing. 2 of the portfolios I'm going to show you at the very end of this, they both use ArtStation. It's really good. And also, please don't put video games that you didn't work on. If you're an artist, like if you didn't work on Bloodborne, don't put it on your portfolio. It sounds weird that I have to say that, but I guess the lead artist was like, I've seen this and it gets on my nerves. Like he said it got on his nerves. So know what your URLs, please. If you're an artist and you have like a logo or some kind of branding, that really helps you out. So you kind of remember, oh man, that model was amazing. I'm gonna show you one of our artists' portfolio, and as soon as you see his page, you're like, wow, like he has like a style as soon as you see it. Lastly, of course, soft skills, easy to work with. We don't want you to like, okay, just think about this for a second. Gears of War, Uncharted, whatever other game you can think of has really beautiful art, right? Those artists are amazing, but they have to be able to work with other people. You don't want to come off as being like having this huge ego or being hard to work with, especially as a junior developer, because you don't have any experience. So yes, you might be amazing, but like if you can't work with other people, like me, the game designer, you're not going to last very long. You have to be able to communicate. Try to keep your massive ego from designing that really cool gun in check, that kind of stuff. And last day schools, like just make sure you have some kind of drive. You're not coming off as being lazy. Lastly, these are going to have some interview questions on there. So this is from our lead engineers, I think from our senior server engineer. So again, this is a hard skill kind of career. So let us know, do you have C# on there? Do you have AWS? What about Tomcat? What about Java? Like, whatever you know how to do, make sure it's on there. And please don't put anything that you don't actually know on your resume because they will ask you about it. They've caught people in senior positions saying they knew something and you ask them 2 questions about an interview and they have a blank face. So make sure you're not doing that. If it's on your resume, please know how to do it. You have publicly available source code. So if you're a programmer, you should have GitHub, Bitbucket, something where if the senior software engineers you've gotten past the recruiter and we want to look at your code, show us what your code looks like. We want to be able to see it. If we've gotten this far now, we care enough. We have to be able to see it. Can they download whatever your side projects are? If you've made games, like, can they download and play it? Like, those kinds of things. Now, the rest of these are really straight up interview questions that have been asked at Big Huge. So just take this with, like, I don't know, put it in the back of your mind. These are not all of the questions, but like they've asked these kind of questions to junior developers before. So how do you learn something new? New APIs, new frameworks, new technologies. What do you do when you're trying to learn a new thing? Hint, you should be doing it. But they might want you to walk through the process of how do you learn something new? How do you write code for testability and long-term maintenance? So Domination is a 4+ year old game, right? If you come in as a junior engineer and you're working on Dominations, most of the code that's in that game got written in 2013, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So you're working with software that's been around for a while. So this is something junior developers don't really think about. They only think about, oh man, we're making a new game. Not usually. Most games are moving to like kind of games as a service kind of thing where they're always on. So most likely if you work for any company, not just us, probably working on a game that has an old code base, or at least the code base is more than a year old, right? So next, what's the most annoying thing about reading someone else's code? Hint, whatever that is for you, make sure you're not doing bad in your code. So, and be able to talk to that. But these are all really good interview questions. These next two things, the single responsibility principle, you guys should just know that. Like, for example, a method should probably do one thing. There are exceptions to that, but like, just kind of know that. That's an interview question. Design patterns. As a junior, you don't have to know design patterns, but if you recognize design patterns, if you can like talk to maybe one or two of them, that really helps set you apart from other junior developers trying to get the same job you are. And lastly, this is not just for engineering, but it's for artists. It's for if you're planning to be a designer, whatever other position, even if you don't go into game design, in an interview, being able to say, I don't know, is okay. You can say, I don't know how to do something. If we expected you to know everything, we wouldn't be hiring you as a junior developer. We'd be hiring you as a senior, and we'd expect you to know way more and pay you way more money. So it is really fine to say, I don't know in an interview. But please, like after you say that, say, well, I think I would try to do this, or I might look that up, or if I really didn't know, I would ask a coworker. Like, just make sure that you're at least leaving the door open for trying to communicate and learn how to do the thing you currently don't know how to do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that. So, third stage, get hired, hopefully. So, like I said earlier, for my one game design job, there's probably about 10,000 kids in school right now for my job. So, it is very competitive. But don't get discouraged by that. If you're doing these things that we've been talking about, do what's in the previous slides, do lots of game jams, apply to be an IGJ scholar. It's literally open right now. Go do that when you leave here. I think I have it written on the board downstairs as well. Do extra projects, do game jams. As long as you're working on your craft, you're setting yourself apart from everyone who's currently not doing the same thing. So, have people review your work. Have others play your games. Playtesting happens constantly. We're having a playtest probably, I think, right now at work. So, for the dev stuff we just finished yesterday. So, it's something that happens not just and when you're in school, it happens in the real world as well. So, just keep that in mind. And please have a good cover letter. If you want like examples of a decent one, you can read mine from like a few years ago. If you want a decent example of a resume, here's a decent example of a resume. Make sure it's only one page. Make sure, skills section, all these keywords, make sure you're not applying to the wrong place with the wrong header, those kinds of things. Like I said, it might sound like it's obvious, but whenever someone has something crazy like, oh, they wrote this to Naughty Dog, but they sent it to us. Like, everyone in our office is laughing at them, and then we just kind of chuck it. Like, it happens all the time. So the talent coordinator sits probably adjacent to me. She'll be like, ha! And then she'll like, come here. Look at that. It makes you look bad. Please don't submit things that are not addressed properly, because even in the future, if it comes back up, because we do keep most resumes on file, it's like, where have I seen that name before? So, yeah, just keep that in mind. And that's a company photo from like 2 years ago. I'm purposely not in that photo because I was like, my hair isn't done, I'm not going this. Peace out, y'all. So, but yeah, there you go. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me questions. While you're asking me questions, I'm going to show you the portfolio that got me hired. So good thing I haven't changed this one too much. I have a different one too. And then I'll show you two of our artists. So remember when you're looking at the two artist portfolios, please don't be discouraged, but just keep in mind that you're not going against your peers for a job. You're really going against these guys you're looking at because they already have jobs. So, yeah, thank you. you, everyone. And I'm going to start pulling this up, but if you have questions, go ahead and ask me. I'm going to click on some of these links. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, you guys can start asking questions. I don't want to like keep you here too long. Some of you have a midterm in like an hour, so we definitely don't want to keep you guys here too long. I'm going to do this. Actually, I'm going to come on this side and do it. So yeah. All right, I think I saw him first.
So could you describe the difference in terms of like qualifications they want between producers and game designers?
So a producer, for anyone that doesn't know, also Press Case used to be a producer. We're more looking, also, there's a third job I didn't talk about. There's also product managers. A product manager is actually really close to being a game designer. Product managers design systems and things, but they design the not fun things usually. They usually design the money-making things.
Oh.
So if you're a game designer, also, I mean, I think on average they make more money than a game designer too, so just throwing that out there. But
Well,
so
you make the revenue streams.
I know the revenue streams, I need to pay my bills, you guys. But the main difference between a producer and a game designer is the one that's making the content, writing the design specs. Producers are more like keeping everyone focused on a common goal. So producers like run schedules, they set up meetings, they coordinate between all different departments. So if I'm having a problem, but I'm kind of busy, but I'm like, man, art isn't not art. Usually it's more like, man, engineering is blocked right now with some live issue, but I need this code to be in the game so I can push my design thing. The producer will then go coordinate with engineers and probably whoever else needs to coordinate with in order to help me get my task accomplished. So if you think about being a producer, we can talk about that more afterward as well. And also you have a former producer that's actually here, so.
Well, I mean, what Kayla said she was doing is actually a really good way to go into a producer track, is to be in a position like a designer, but to take ownership of your content. Because some designers just like, well, here's my design, here's what I need. They throw it off to art, they throw it off to code, and then when it comes back, they deal with anything being wrong.
Yep.
But if you're actually out there actively working with those different groups, you're showing that you can basically lead a team by doing it, and that's usually the best way to get in as a producer. Showing that you can lead a design, starting with your own, and then everybody else's.
And actually, one of our producers at my company right now, she used to be a game designer on the Pokemon trading card game, the digital one, not the card game. So she used to do that, and then she wanted to transition to being a producer, and she basically did exactly what Professor Casey is talking about. So if you're showing more leadership and you're showing how to like manage big things, you might want to be a producer. But we can talk about that more a little bit. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, that does.
Right, cool. And I think you were next.
Yeah. So when you got your job at Big Huge, did you apply as a designer, or did you have to like work your way up that? Because I know a lot of people don't start as a designer.
That is true. So I don't want to say I'm an anomaly, but I shouldn't say most, a lot of people start in either QA or like maybe some other game adjacent position before becoming a game designer. So I never did that, mostly because I was IGJ Scholar actually. So go apply for that, you guys. What happened was I became an IGJ Scholar. I wasn't even looking for a job, so I was here. And the former executive director of the IGA is like BFFs with my company's CEO. So when our names got posted on Facebook for like the group IGA page or whatever, that you all can go see, it's on Facebook. I think I got a message from the CEO like a day or two later, and he actually wanted to interview me for an engineering position at first, because I also have languages and stuff on my resume, and I think in my blurb I mentioned like liking Unreal and programming and stuff. So yes, it is not very common to come in with only school experience, or in my case, work experience, but like for like the government sector, that's not common to come in and get a game design job. So was that answer it? Or,
Yeah.
I think back there.
Earlier you mentioned like the importance of being able to say like I don't know, even like, in the workplace, like somebody gives you something that I guess like concerning that there's a deadline, there's something you need to get this something done in a certain amount of time. I'm not sure how to do it. How do you, I guess, like are there ways to expedite learning things like I guess specifically as an executive with a big huge if say I'm a modeler but I'm not sure about how to execute some kind of part of the pipeline specifically there, I guess like that just kind of digs into your production time. So I guess is there like ways to expedite that are provided by the company, or is it all like your SOL, go figure it out?
So there's two things that usually happen. For your producer, especially when you're new, we always estimate, we use Scrum at work. We have daily stand-ups. If you're new, when you're estimating tasks, we even say like, okay, it's your first time doing this. Maybe you should add like X amount of time or X amount of days to whatever your work is, because you don't know how to do that thing. So if we were to hire a designer right now to do any of my work, yes, my estimate, I might say it'll take me a day to do it, whatever. But they should probably say it might take me 3 days, or it might take me 4 days, it might take me a week. So basically what we try to work, at least at Big Q, we try to work in learning a thing if when possible. But when it's not possible, what I've seen happen, so for example, we hired a modeler, and at Big Huge, by the way, our artists do everything. It is not a separate job. They do modeling and the texturing and the animation. So if you're a modeler at Big Huge, you're gonna do all three. So just keep that in mind. And other companies do split them out. Like I know for Access, for people that work on Civ, they have specific animators and specific modelers. They separate it. But we hired a modeler, and he wasn't as good at animating. So I don't remember exactly what happened, but I knew like he would do the modeling, he would do the texturing, and then like he would do the animation too. It wouldn't come out that great, but he'd work on it really hard. And then one of our senior animators would come over and help him out, like, hey man, this way, or maybe you tried it this way or did this. And of course, like I think now he's actually pretty good. So I mean, he's been there for about I think 1.5 years now maybe. So just make sure you're putting the work in. So not every company's gonna be as generous and like let you build in learning time, but if you have the time, like even if you don't have the time, try to make sure you're learning on your own time. So when work's over, if you have some extra time, you don't have to go run home to the wife and kids or whatever. Spend that extra hour or two either at work working on that thing, or spend that extra few hours at home working on that thing, because it's only going to help you in the long run. Yes, it's going to help the company, help the game, but it's also going to help you make yourself more marketable. So now that modeler can model, texture, and animate. It's not just pigeonholed to only doing modeling. Yeah. And while I have it up, this is my terrible portfolio that got me hired. So as you see, this is all a bunch of bad stuff I did in school and some extracurricular things as well. Notice I don't have anything that's not something I've worked on there. So the only bad thing about my landing page is that you have to scroll down. So my talent coordinator said if I had to redo mine that got me hired, instead of having to scroll like this, she'd probably have me just make sure that these games are further up. So as soon as you get on the landing page, you see my games. So
I've played the Kanga Mouse one.
What'd you say?
I've played the Kanga Mouse
Yes.
one.
So actually, since Oren mentioned it, right? I did this for like Global Game Jam 2015, 2016. It was a while. It was not a school assignment. It was the Global Game Jam that happens every year in January. You guys should do that too. It's free. Just go on the website and participate. We used to have game jams here at George Mason. They have it at American University. They have them at other sites around here too. So based on Global Game Jam happens, just go on the page. You guys can go participate and do that. Like, it's a good
I think
thing.
there's a GATIC-based one that has signups right now.
Yeah, so
even a smaller one, I think is.
Even if it's only like a small one, like Orange just said, like just go do it. Like it's only a weekend. Like you guys have a weekend to work on your craft. So, well yes, but basically, at least for like since we talked about Kanga Mouse, for here, Professor Piccioni always made sure like even if they can't download your, because obviously him and Professor Grimsby used to work for like big companies, right? Used to look at portfolios and things. They made it very clear that even if basically everyone doesn't have time to play your game, if they can at least see like a minute video, you don't want your videos to be too long. You're probably learning this in class right now. Your video is like a minute long to at least show what you've been working on. I don't have to play this, but it's basically a minute of a video, like 42 seconds of a video that shows the game I designed, basically. And if you scroll down, it says when it was, what I did on it. I did bad models for it. The game synopsis, what it is. And if you actually want to download and play the game, you can click this link to download and play the game. So that big thing I mentioned for the game design slide, you have games that you've made. Yes, you can see in my portfolio I made some games. Can I play your game? Actually, you can, yeah. It's right there. Even if, like, for example, they don't have time to play your game, there's a video right here so they can still see the game. They just want to make sure they can see your work. That's the biggest thing. If you have other things, like you want to have a separate about page, you can. There's about this, like so this is really old, so I have a new one. But contact stuff, your email, your phone number, your cover letter, your resume, all this stuff should be on there somewhere. And this is the one I got now. So it's not the best, but we're gonna look at some of the ones that are really good now for like our current artists. But before I scare everyone, is there another question? Let me make sure before I. Okay, so this is Kristen's. So I think I'm pretty sure. I feel like she talked to you before, or talked to Evan before. So this is Kristen's portfolio. Her art style is very distinct. You can see like as soon as you get to her page, you see her art. You can see her. You can see her art. You can see a link. You can see the stuff she's working on. You can see different styles. You can see things she's drawn like immediately, right? So there's no. Hers does what mine didn't do. You don't have to scroll to see her stuff. As soon as you get there, bam, you see stuff she made. So keep that in mind. And of course, she has like an about, and she has like, I think her resume's on here somewhere as well. If I see the resume, I'll show you guys that as well. So I think her resume was actually very. So, yeah. Yeah. So this kind of goes back into if you're an artist trying to have some kind of branding. So she's like big bold letters, like she has her software immediately, don't have to scroll anything. Has her education immediately, has her experience immediately. So being able to see these things as soon as I look at your resume is like essential. And then of course you can scroll down. But remember, she has a job at Big Huge right now. She has a one-page resume, only one. So she got all these awards, she went to SCAD, she did all these things, but it's all apparent as soon as I look at her resume. So I'm gonna show you guys that. I'm gonna leave some time to talk about you guys' things. Lastly, at work we call this guy a monster. So me and him started working on the same day. So when one of the senior artists, before he hired him, they saw this model and they were like, oh my God, he's a monster. We need to have him come in. We need to talk to this guy. So yeah, so like I said, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but like if you're an artist,
Yeah, you are.
you're going up against Kristen. You're going up against Ziz. Like you're going up against these people. Like yes, it's nice. So obviously their art styles are very different, right? But when because we used to give you some kind of art test or game design test or programming test or whatever. For art tests, usually they'll tell you to model something. So even though she has a certain style on here, and even though he has a certain style on here, we want to know, can you make the same art? Can you make art for Dominations? Can you fit Dominations' art style? And as you can see, he did stuff for Dominations. So this is giant space shuttle splashes in the game. This is so remember that master class I showed you guys that I designed? He made the art for the splash screen for it. So this is all like all hand. So he's obviously a monster. So just keep that in mind. And this is like some of his other work. So yeah, there you go. It's some of her other stuff. So very different art styles, but it's okay to have very different art styles. The most important thing is like when you do your art test, because usually they'll probably tell you to do something that is for whatever kind of game they're working on. You should imagine whatever style they tell you to match for the art test or anything else that they ask you to do in an interview. So just keep that in mind. So obviously we're not making giant mechs and stuff in Dominations, but he's made lots of models. Actually, I think that Master Assassin model, I'm pretty sure, yeah, actually, where is it? He made this, there's more Mastodon, and so the guy that made those mechs also made that. These are Dominations things. So yes, even though he can make that giant mech, he can also do things with Dominations. So, all right, I'm done talking. If you guys have questions, or if you brought your resume or your cover letter or your portfolio, I can look at them. If you want more food, there's more food. Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming.
I'm going to make any of the ArtStation links or the information
Yeah, I can link Kristen and Ziz's profile. I'll extend it to.